What up? I'm Bianca.
And I'm Adrianne.
And we are two creative women living in New York City, going through a lot of stuff.
And that's why we're here, to share our experiences, and hopefully you can learn from it.
And if not, you can just laugh with us.
In this episode of Women in the Wild,
what are we talking about?
Something pretty wild.
What?
So wild that we're continuing our last episode.
Nice.
Because we have so many stories of our past dating histories and stuff that we kind of come across and like stood out to us. So
we have a long history of dating situations. So we just want to fill our viewers in, know a little bit about our personal lives.
Exactly.
Because we have no privacy.
I think between the two of us, we've got like 15 to 20 years of dating experience. I mean, I think, right?
What?
Because I've been dating years. Because how old are you? I'm 25 now.
I'm
You're 24.
And I started dating when I was 18. 18?
Okay, I started dating when I was 16. So I've had like 9 years of dating experience, and you've had about...
Not that much. 18 to 24
is 8 years?
No,
6. Oh my gosh, 6 years. Wow, look at the math. Yeah, well, that's about 15 years-ish between the two of us.
Oh, between the two of us?
Yeah, between the two of us, yeah.
I thought you meant like each. I'm like,
no, 20 years. That's how long we both lived.
I didn't start dating when I was 4.
Oh, dang, you got some game if you've been dating since 4. But we'll just dive right into it. We're gonna go through chronologically.
I'm really excited about this actually, because I know you're gonna tell me stories about people I have no idea about.
Yeah, we're gonna go all the way back to...
I'm a listener today, and you will be too when it's my turn.
Yeah, we'll take turns. So I guess the structure of today's podcast is we'll break it down into segments of who we dated. So it's like, I'll go first, then you tell a story, then I go, then you go. So perfect. We'll keep it structured like that, because as you have listened to from the previous episodes, we can go through a lot of different tangents. So we're gonna try to keep it more structured today. So yeah, let's just dive right in. So like I said, I was dating since I was 16, which is kind of crazy because I wasn't, so before I lived in the Philippines, so I lived in the Philippines and moved here when I was 16, so in high school. I had moved back and forth when I was little, but more like, I actually stayed a long time in high school. So not long enough that I was able to have a boyfriend. Okay. And that was my first ever boyfriend. Let's call him Mick.
Yeah, we're using code names for
the sake of this podcast.
So you were how old? 16?
I was 16. Okay. I had just moved to New Jersey as a teenager, and it was an adjustment to move back with like my mom as a teenager too, because I didn't really grow up with her, and then she was married, so I had a stepdad and 2 younger half brothers. So we have about a 5-year age difference between us 3. So me, then I'm the eldest, then I have 2 younger brothers. When I moved, I think that I had a pretty normal high school experience. I didn't really get bullied much. I pretty much stayed to myself. I had a good group of friends. But anyway, I was in chemistry class with this guy.
I guess there was chemistry.
There was chemistry. There was chemistry in chemistry. And I don't know how like your high school structure was, but mine was, we only had 4 classes a semester. So it would be 85 minutes each. So like all classes would be so long. It wouldn't be like 45 minutes and you go like 8 classes a day. It would be 4 classes for like half of the year, and then the next 4 classes is the next half of the year, and that completes your 8.
That makes things easier, I can imagine.
Less homework, more time to like...
You can focus on each subject, actually.
Exactly, like the teachers actually have time to like give us projects and things. But anyway, since each class was long, you kind of do chemistry and you do your lab, so there's time to talk. So anyway, we started dating, and then...
So how was your homework? Good.
Good. I didn't care about homework. I got an A in that class. It was fine. But in terms of like the dating part, I guess, yeah, we actually stayed together for a long time. The first time that I guess the thing that stood out to me is like, because this was my first ever boyfriend. Like I never
So you guys were official?
We were official.
Okay.
In school, but like at home, nobody knew. Until like, I guess, because your parents aren't stupid. Of course they know things, right? So they'll find out and like pry and things like that. And so,
sure.
Yeah, and you gotta give your parents more credit.
If you live at home, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we were in high school at that point, so I'm like, of course I'm living at home. But yeah, my mom didn't really like respond so well to it. So like this being like the beginning of how dating as a teenager was for me, it kind of set a precedent to like how it was for me after. Like it was so hard for me to date later on because I was so traumatized from being criticized, and it's like, oh, you can't have a boyfriend until you're like done with college and this and that. So I was just like traumatized from that because it was so negatively receptive. Instead of them talking to me and like going through what is safe and what is right and going through red flags and what, you know, the differences of what a healthy relationship is versus what is not. You know, I was lucky in the regard that like Mick treated me really well, took care of me, so much so that when things went down with my mom, because as you guys know from the previous episode, I don't have the best relationship with my mom, we actually ended up in the system. We ended up in like social services because we were taken away from our mother. I don't think you really know this.
How did they know that your mom wasn't good?
So side story, I'm gonna try to keep this one super short.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's important.
I don't know.
But so this Mick guy, so we've been together, and the course of the whole relationship was probably almost 2 years. But at that point, a lot of things were already happening with my mom, and so I would actually tell Mick what was going on, because at that time, I think my mom and my stepdad at the time were going through already like a separation and a legal divorce. And so the reason why my brothers and I were taken away and were put into the social system was because I told my boyfriend, like, hey, my mom was telling me that if my stepdad doesn't come back, or like if my stepdad shows up at the house, she's going to take me and my brothers with her in the car and drive us into a ditch, and like kill herself. Yeah, it's okay. She really said that, and I was like 15 at the time. So like, okay, this got really serious, and so like, my mom can be capable of like really crazy things. So when I told my boyfriend, because for me things are like, oh, this is normal. I don't really know what's going on. I'm naive, whatever. So my boyfriend was like, this is not normal. So he actually told my guidance counselor. And my guidance counselor, I already had a good relationship with her because she kind of knew I would have panic attacks in between class. And so she kind of knew what was going on, like things weren't okay at home. So he told my guidance counselor told the police. It so happened that day, it was a coincidence that my brothers weren't in school. So like everybody went into panic, and so the cops actually came and took me in school that day because my brothers also weren't in school, and it was a coincidence. It turns out that my mom just didn't take them to school that day because she was lazy or something.
Oh my god!
She just wasn't in the mood to go drive them to school. So even more, it looked even worse for her. So basically, yeah, my boyfriend like at the time told my guidance counselor like, look, this is what Adrianne's going through. She's too afraid to tell you, or like maybe I didn't take it seriously enough or whatever. And for the longest time, I like lived with so much guilt that happened. But then at the end of the day, like now that I'm older, I realize, okay, what I did was right, and for the safety of my brothers and everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, their father got custody, which was really good, because then after that, they were able to go into like a private school and, go on to like do more stable things.
Whereas
whereas me, yeah, no, this is
going back to the mix.
Going back to the mixed story is, yeah, I was really lucky that he took care of me. I ended up even living with him, which was not the most ideal situation for someone in high school. Like, I lived with him and his family, and this was like a controlled environment, okay, where like DIFUS, which is the Department of Youth and Family Services, they actually do background checks on like the families. Like, this was a very like serious situation. So yeah, it was my first ever relationship, and all of these things happened where like he was my first ever boyfriend, he was my first ever sexual partner, and I also lived with him and his entire family. So it was
a coincidence, right? Like the services, they just checked this family up. Was it a coincidence?
It wasn't a coincidence also because like we didn't have a lot of family here. I didn't have a lot of family. My brothers, they had their grandparents. I only really had my mom. So
but I mean, how did child services
match me with them?
You with him?
Because I think I was already kind of staying over there because I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Okay.
And so for a time I also lived with my brothers and their grandparents. But because I wasn't really related to them, it was an awkward situation, and like I wasn't really like completely mentally safe there.
Okay.
So then I had moved in with like it was a fucked up world where like the best place for me to stay at the time was at my boyfriend's family's house.
Okay.
And so that's why I went home to the Philippines for college, because I tried to do college for like part-time in New Jersey for a bit, but I was like, I can't do this. Luckily, my aunt and my grandparents were like, look, we know your situation, just come home, see what happens. And I ended up enrolling in college there.
Wait.
Yeah.
So what happened with Mike?
We broke up. I moved to the Philippines. Well, I was supposed to go only to the Philippines to like detox and like take a vacation, like a 6-month vacation. I ended up enrolling in school, and when I decided to stay for a longer period of time, we tried to make the relationship work, but we ended up breaking up long distance. Yeah, so that was that first relationship. It was very heavy.
What a wild first boyfriend.
15 to like 17. Yeah, I was with him.
That's a very heavy, emotionally packed.
And I was. It was emotionally packed. Like, I think it ended okay. Like, we also outgrew each other in the process, and at the end of it, it was just like not the best. Like, I thought like, oh, it's so cool, like I live with my boyfriend. It's like, no, like this isn't what a 15-year-old should be in. And again, I never had guidance on like what was right in dating and what wasn't. So all I thought was like, this is normal, everything's fine, it's okay, until finally my aunt came and visited, and she was like, this is not normal, this is not okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the lesson here is just ask your parents. I guess if you have parents that are like willing to talk to you, it's not as scary. I guess now that we're older, it's so much easier to talk to them too. So yeah, that was basically that relationship, my first ever one. It was basically a crash course into what to do, what not to do, and yeah.
Well.
Since I gave my first.
And that was your first everything?
Everything, basically, yeah. Because it was almost 2 years. We were together for 2 years.
First kiss too?
First kiss, first everything.
Wow.
That took it all.
He took it all.
Yep.
My first boyfriend was pretty late in my life. You know,
how late is late though? Because
I'm talking like I'm a freaking grandma.
I know, like define late for the audience.
I was 21.
Okay, that's fair. That's good.
That wasn't my first kiss, but that was my first many other things.
Do you want to explain why you waited till like you were 21?
Oh sure. So something that you mentioned about how your mom kind of scarred you.
Yeah.
My mom is not that dramatic. Like, I didn't have to go live with my boyfriend's family or anything like that. But back in DR, basically, I never dated anyone. I had I think a total of 2 crushes growing up, like real crushes, of course. Like guys that I actually wanted to go out with, and I didn't even think about no, that's not true. I did think about going out with them, but I knew that was not something.
I'm sure there were cute guys everywhere still.
But it wasn't something that I would feel open telling my mom about, because she was always so close in that whole area of life. Like, I just didn't feel like the closeness with my mom was there for me to be like, oh my gosh, mom, I met this really cute guy. Like, not at all. I'm not sure when she told me for the first time, like, oh, you can't have a boyfriend or you can't go out with guys, but I just felt it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like the way you're raised.
No, totally.
And like the strictness. I mean, if my mom gets super dramatic about me, like, having a guy friend come over, like, how am I ever gonna tell her about having a crush? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, she doesn't have to tell me that I can go out with a guy. Like, I already know.
Yeah, the expectations are already set because of like how we were.
Yeah.
How we grew up.
Matter of fact, while we're talking about that, I do have examples of like 2 times that I actually told my mom, and one of these times was one of the crushes I mentioned. The other one, he wasn't really a crush, but just a guy that asked me out, and I was freaking 16 years old.
Oh.
So I was like, I think my mom will understand that I'm 16 years old.
Yeah.
And there's a properly nice guy asking me out to the movies, which is like the most basic, like, classic date.
Yeah, movies in the mall.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong here. Like,
Starter
I'm gonna
date.
just try it, you know? But before I tell that one, I had like this super huge mega crush on this guy in my piano class growing up. Matter of fact, I think he might be gay now, but back in time, I don't think he was, or didn't know it yet. And I really liked it. And it's such a cute story, because he wasn't really like the most attractive man in the world, but he was so good at piano, and that really, really attracted me. And I really wanted to ask him out, and he was a little older. So the old guy thing has been since always for me, because I think I when I liked him for real, I was like 15, and he was 23. So that's 8 years.
Okay.
Like, for a 15-year-old, you don't really think of,
You don't really think about that, I guess.
To me, it felt old, but I still liked him anyway. And I asked him out. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell anyone. I had his phone number from his house. Which
Like a landline?
And this connects to what we said in the last episode, how the culture...
Hello, Mr. Mom and Dad! Can I please speak to your son?
It was exactly like that, though. So in the last episode, we were like, you know, when you want to visit the guy you like, and you're like, hey, Mr. Mom and Dad, I'm here for your son. Like, it was the same thing, but phone version.
Oh, wow.
Like, so I called his house, and this was after like a whole full year of liking this guy. I had all my best friends knew about him.
Yeah.
I don't even care if he hears it. His name is Angel. And all my friends were like, Angel, for like a whole freaking year. And like, I saw him every week at piano lessons. And at this point, I was just going insane. Oh, and the last thing that happened during that time is that we had to play together for like the recital.
Ooh.
So I was seeing him more constantly. He actually came to my house. We exchanged numbers. Like, there was something there. So I'm like, I'm going to take my chance. I'm going to call his house and I'm going to ask him out.
I love how like cute and like just
So
teenage,
Yeah.
wholesome this story is.
And also, I was kind of a shy girl, so this was like a major moment for me. I'm like, oh my god, I am gonna call his house. Like,
I am.
So I remember I called his house, and his dad picked up.
Did you rehearse what you were gonna say before?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I might have even written it down in a book.
Oh, the golden age of the landline.
And I remember his dad was a little older. Like, he was one of those old, like, he probably had this kid later in his life.
Oh, okay, I see.
Like, he had an old dad, maybe like late 50s or 60s or early 60s.
Yeah.
Which to me, a 15-year-old, that's an old
That's
man,
an old
you know?
dude. Yeah.
And the man answered the phone. He's like, hello. And I'm like, hi, this is Bianca. And he knew who I was because of piano lessons. I had been in this piano class since I was like 8.
Gotcha.
And Angel as well. So it was like
So like you grew up
like
almost
he knew
together.
who I was.
Yeah.
No, like, can I speak to Angel? He's like, okay, yeah, you can. And it was the most awkward thing. I had never ever talked to Angel on the phone before this moment. And I don't remember what he sounded like. But the whole point is, I remember I felt so awkward. I was like, so I was thinking maybe because we have been like seeing each other for the recital practices.
I'm dead. Okay.
It would be cool, you know, after the recital to still like keep in touch.
I love it.
So we should go to the movies sometime. I asked him out to the movies.
You actually asked him out to the movies. Okay.
And that was my like whole reasoning behind it. It's like, oh, we've been friends like for the past few months practicing for this recital. Like I'm just worried that after the recital we won't see each other. So let's go to the, like that was the
smart.
Yeah. You could tell that I had thought about this.
Yes. Very smart.
And you know what? He said yes. He said yes.
So was this your
first time I asked someone out and they said yes? That felt amazing. And I had been crushing on this guy so hard for
like a year or like
now the next step, right? Because I live with my parents. The next step is telling my mom that I'm going to the movies with Angel, right?
Yes.
Mistake. Oh no! Major mistake. And this is so bad because my mom knew who Angel was. Like I said, I had been in the Spanish class since I was 8 years old.
And so has he.
He was like one of the top students and I was too. Like everyone knew who the two of us were. She knew who he was. He had been to my house for the practices. He knew he was a nice guy. Like there was no reason why not.
Yeah.
And she was like, you did what? Are you crazy? How can you invite a guy out? You can't do it. She's like,
meanwhile, you were so proud of yourself for having asked the guy out.
And I was like very ahead of my time.
You're confident.
Mm-hmm. Like not waiting for no man to ask me out.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna take the first step. So me, like fast forwarding to who I am now, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does. That's why you're so true to you until now. Okay, so your mom.
My mom is very traditional, and she was like, "You gotta let men like do the first step. Like it looks bad, blah blah blah." And I was like, "But mom, the point is."
Boomer.
Boomer triggered.
Boomer triggered.
But I'm like, the whole point is that he said yes, and I'm super happy. So can I go? And then her other excuse after she saw that didn't work was that he was too old for me and it was inappropriate that a 23-year-old would go out with a 15-year-old.
Well, that's actually true. I mean, if you were in the States, that would be a crime. So, yeah.
No, in the DR, I think there's the same law, although no one cares, but it is still. But the point is, I knew there was nothing wrong. Like, he was a nice guy, and he had said yes, and I wanted it.
Yeah, but I guess as a parent, like, now that I think about it, I mean, I'm not a parent,
I was
but I'm
so
like,
sad. After all that hard work.
Yeah, actually.
After all that hard work, my sweat and tears put into this. Getting the yes and then not being able to like take the prize.
Yeah, well, two milestones there. You were pretty open with your mom because you told her, and you asked the guy out, and he said yes.
You don't know how many dreams I had with.
So you never actually. So it never happened.
No.
So you had to call him back and be like, "My mom said no."
No, I mean, yeah. No, I didn't say my mom said no.
How'd you cancel?
I don't remember what I said, but I didn't say my mom said no. I think I couldn't or whatever. I made up something.
Okay. Wow, that must have been so annoying. Because it's like, he
so
said yes!
Dude, and that was a major crush. Like dreams and
long time crush. Gosh. Remember when it was just crushes?
It was
blissful.
My mom broke my heart. My first heartbreak was my mom.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, then I was gonna say like real quick, the other time I asked my mom if I could go out with someone, it was kind of, they were all music related, but my childhood had a lot to do with music. So I was in the conservatory in Santo Domingo, and I met a guy there, and I'm gonna make this short. He asked me out, he liked me, whatever, and I was 16 at the time. That was my last year in DR too. And I knew that was going to be my last year in DR. And I was like, you know what? Why the hell not? I'm like 16. I've never been on a proper date. This guy seems fine. We became friends and we had been talking for a while. So I was like, yeah, I want to go out with you. And then again, like I just couldn't go out of my house without saying where I was going. That was the issue. And I don't like lying. I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm going out with my friend Sarah, and then doing that.
Right.
I was like, why? Like, I should be able at this age to just go out with a guy.
You would think.
You would think.
I still have friends who live at home that are my age in the Philippines that still have to ask permission from their parents.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I knew for a fact that I was going to move out by the age of 17. I was like, I can't live like this. But anyway, my parents were great. It's just DR is conservative.
You want to be independent, yeah. And we'll talk more about that actually in the next episode. So guys, in the next episode, please tune in next week because we're going to be talking about generational love and like how people used to date before and how
I can't wait to tell my parents' love story.
And like how dating is now and like even younger, like our 18-year-old audiences and even like maybe our younger audience. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Adrianne.
Do you have a question for me today?
Oh wait, but I haven't told you what happened.
Oh yeah.
So I told my mom, and this is so stupid. At the time, that last year or so in high school, I made a new friend. And my new friend was very different from like my typical friends. I was like the good girl who had like good girlfriends.
Gotcha.
And this girl, she wasn't a bad girl, but she was just like very liberal, very open. She openly already had a few boyfriends, and she openly would go out on dates with guys.
She was ahead of her time, basically.
Yeah,
okay.
and she was great. I still love her to this day, one of my best friends. And this is so sad too. I'm not sure whatever. When I asked my mom if I could go out with this guy, she was like, see, this is what happens when you start hanging out with so-and-so. And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that friend. This has to do with the fact that I'm 16 and I have never dated anyone in my whole entire life and I want to go on a freaking date.
And you have high school hormones!
Oh my god, and this was a perfectly great candidate. Like, he was a med student. He was like into music as I was. He was like super well educated.
So same ambitions.
Courteous, with like super polite, everything. I even knew his sisters and like some of his family by this time because we became friends. It's like no reason to say no. We were going to the movies. Like, why, Mom? Why?
What's the worst that can happen at the movies, right? For a date.
And she said no.
And was this shortly after
And I was 16. That's incredible. What?
This was shortly after Angel, or was this?
That was like the year after.
The year after. Okay.
Yeah, like a year after.
Dang, even a year later, your mom's still like, nope.
It was crazy. Yeah, so I didn't date anyone until I moved here. But I have a question for you.
What is your question for today?
And I want you to answer this question honestly.
Okay.
And I want everyone listening to also answer this question because I am very curious. There's so many things in psychology that I don't understand, and I want to know if they're like real and like people actually go through these things. And one of the major like psychological things in love for women, and actually men too, but
humans, mostly for women, okay,
and gay men, I guess, is that they like partners that are somewhat similar to their dads. Has that ever happened to you? Like you see some resemblance of your dad in a guy and that attracts you?
Maybe I'm not the right person to ask. More my grandfather, because my dad, I don't know if I talked about this in the previous podcast, but just backstory. My father passed away before I was born, so I never actually met him.
That's true.
He drowned in an accident. But I do know a lot.
I didn't know that, I'm sorry. But we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I never actually got to meet him, but I'm very close with his parents, so my grandparents, so I know a lot about him. So it wasn't that sad, but yeah, I think I look a lot for people like my grandfather, though. I think it's pretty similar because it's like he was a man who treated me right, and after the whole like dating thing went with my mom, because like I never really was raised by my mom, it was my grandparents who raised me. So when I went back for college, like when I was already 17 turning 18, and I went back for college, they at first it was kind of rocky because I was traumatized from the experience of dating while I was with my mom. But it was a different experience with my grandparents. At first, it was kind of rocky. Like, there was a little bit of, like, what are you doing? Like, you're too young. And then later on, it was like, whatever, just do your thing.
Okay.
And then to the point where that when Joey and I broke up, and I was back here in Brooklyn, like, fast forward years later, right? I called my grandfather when I moved back into my apartment, and, like, all my stuff were in the room. Like, this was my first night spending it in my apartment back here in Brooklyn, like maybe a couple weeks ago. I called my grandfather crying, like,
oh yeah, I remember.
I'm crying, like, I have no one else to talk to. I don't know, like, who else to call. And my grandfather's like, I'm so sorry, I'm crying to you about boy problems. It's so stupid. Like, you're old and you have other things to worry about. He's like, no, I should be the first one you call. And then that was like, and that's the thing. Like, I guess when you're in your teens and you're starting to date, it'll take time to develop that relationship with your parents and things like that before you actually get to the point where you can tell them everything. Yeah. Or if not everything, at least most things. But what was your question again? I felt like we went off on a really long tangent.
Just if you have ever liked a partner because they remind you of your dad. And also
the qualities of my grandfather, I like people who like to learn, value education more than and experiences more than like material things.
So sometimes that's obviously subconsciously.
Yeah. Do you go through the same thing too?
I did not know. Okay. I did not know I had that. But now looking back, I can see some relationships that are like, I don't even know why I like that person. But then I'm like, he's very similar to my dad. Like, it's so subconscious for me.
And are you close with your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, my first ever boyfriend, who I'll talk about eventually.
Yes,
but it's
please
your
tell
turn
me.
After.
No, but I want to hear it. Okay. I want to hear it.
So I've only had one like serious relationship.
Yeah.
And it was this guy. Who might hear this at some point. And I know he'll know it's him because it's the only one.
Do we have a nickname for him? I think we wrote it down.
I think his nickname was Oscar.
Wait. Okay.
So Oscar, we met in college. It was during a time that me and my friends, I have like an amazing group of girlfriends that I met in college, and to this day we're like besties. But it was like a weird year because they all moved together in like this apartment and I didn't. Out of choice, I wanted to live by myself, and I got a single in college, so I'm like, I'm gonna be by myself. So it's whatever. But there was like some friction there, and I think I just didn't feel like I was that close to them that year. And then all of a sudden I met this guy at like a college party, and I never went to college parties, and then I went to that one, and he also never goes to parties. Gotcha. But he also just went to that one. So we met, and super nice guy, like cliche nice guy. Like, I went through so much that year, and he was like there for me every freaking time. I even got really, really badly sick that year because I have eczema and it flares up, and that was like my worst year with eczema. Like, I actually had to go
even
to the
worse
hospital.
than the previous episode with the band-aids.
Yeah.
For those who saw the previous episode.
Just look at the previous episode, and I look like a heroin addict. Like, so many band-aids around my arm. That's eczema.
So
like,
that was worse even back then.
I actually want to talk about that at some point, because this is like a very serious illness. But anyway, that year was the year I was graduating. There was so much stress. I was finally gonna find a place to live in New York that was outside of college. Like, all these new, finding a job. I think my stress levels were just crazy, and it got so bad that I had to go to like urgent care, and I stayed in the hospital for a bit. It was crazy. But anyway, that guy was there. Like, he was always there. Eventually we started dating, and he was great, but I feel like I went into the relationship just because he was a nice guy. And that's an issue.
Nice guy trap.
That's a nice guy trap. Because I was like, yeah, why not? He's a nice guy. It'd be stupid not to. But in reality, I didn't take the time to step back and be like, what are the things that I like in a guy? What are the things that I find really cool in a guy? Like, what are the things that I'm attracted to? I'm not saying he wasn't attractive, because he was. He's actually really cute. But it's just like more of a personality thing. like things in common kind of thing. Like basically the whole relationship sums up in, as I was already in the relationship and I was already his girlfriend, I realized that I didn't really know him, and I was getting to know him while I was already his girlfriend, and that getting to know him led to me realizing some things that I actually didn't like.
Yeah. And how old are you at this point?
21.
21.
Well, not when I was.
And you were also, did you
21.
just move into the city at that point? Like you were getting your own place?
I was graduating.
Okay. So I think also at that point, you were also still getting to know yourself. Like as an adult
that's true. That's true.
Aside
that's
from like him also changing, you were also changing in
so
that
many
process.
things changed that year.
Yeah.
I moved to the city.
21 is a rough year.
I moved to the city too, and what was it? And he stayed back in college because he had one more year to go. So we were like kind of long distance, like an hour away by train, because none of us have a car. So that's a little bit like a long distance relationship, because taking a train from like one city to another is,
when you're going to school full time, it's a lot. Yeah.
And we saw each other only on the weekends, stuff like that. But anyway, the point is, then I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is not like the kind of person that I want as a boyfriend. Like, even though he's nice and everything, we have nothing in common. Like, not even music, not even like things to do.
I think I can relate to that. I'll talk about two things. I'll go through my next relationship, like my next longest. I'll be basically going through all my long relationships that went past like a year-ish.
But to wrap up my thing, looking back, and I think that's kind of like the whole nice guy trap.
Yes,
looking
that nice
back,
guy trap, guys.
I'm like, why did I say yes? And why did I like think I liked him so much? And it's because my dad is like the biggest like teddy bear, like nice guy who like gives me everything I want, spoiled me as a girl, and was just like funny. Like he was my dad basically. Like he took care of me, like legit. When I tell you I was sick, he was the kind of like person to like, he would come home to like my dorm, I guess, in college and like feed me and stuff.
What?
This is so
cute.
It is cute. And like, I'm not saying I don't like those things, but also my dad is like kind of like really quirky and weird.
I think your standard for men is pretty high because your dad treated you well. Like the male figure in your life actually treated you well. Plus you also have a good relationship with your brothers.
Yeah.
So there's also that.
But here's the thing, something that I've been noticing is my dad also, he's kind of weird, but like in a funny weird, but he's definitely weird. Like he likes, his favorite song is The Climb by Miley Cyrus. Like he has like really bad dad jokes, and how else is my dad weird? I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah,
he's
but
an
I guess
Aquarius.
we can talk about it more in the next episode.
True.
I guess one thing for next week's question, something along the lines of like, beyond your dad being the nice guy, you should ask your mom, what aside from dad being nice kept you?
Sure, I'll go into that, but I'm not even, I have asked that question.
You have? Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, that's gonna be next week's episode, but we're gonna jump into the next partner. Oh gosh.
But real quick, also, you know how we have diagnosed me as going through a weird guy phase? I think it has a lot to do with my dad too. Basically, right now, for the listeners, I'm going through a weird guy phase. Like, I'm liking guys just for the fact that they're weird. Why? I don't know. But maybe it has something to do with the fact that my dad is pretty weird, so.
And plus you're pretty weird and I'm pretty weird and everybody's weird.
But like
so
weird. Like,
you're kind of weird.
You have seen the guys that I'm liking. It's like they all have, like they all dress funny and like they all, I don't know.
Yeah, but their hair is kind of like a little bit all over the place.
And they're all a little older too. Like, why am I trying to date my dad? This is so bad. But okay.
All right.
So now you tell me your next
story. Before I fell into the nice guy trap, it was like basically overcorrecting. So after Mick, there were a couple like short relationships here and there, and then I started dating this, and this was all in the Philippines. So I was in college. I was working for a photographer that was in the wedding industry. So yeah. Anyway, we're in this like photography workshop together, and then later on he ended up shooting for my boss. And then from there, this guy, let's call him MVP. Not that he's an MVP, it's, yeah, most vicious player maybe. Yikes. But yeah, so he basically, like, this photographer guy, like, flirted with me. I fell for it because he was tall, he dressed nice, we were into the same things, so we worked together. Toxic. He ended up cheating on me. He ended up cheating on me with one of the makeup artists that I work with and know.
Oh no.
And you know how I found out how he was cheating on me?
How?
I was working under his studio, so I was editing all the stuff on his laptop, and he was logged into Facebook. And I was like, you know what, something's been feeling fishy, let me actually like look things up. And I never do that. I really don't give a shit. And then I start seeing messages, like DMs from her and him. And then it was like, these were the lines. I still remember it. It was like, I gotta clean up your hair, cause like, she might see your hair. And cause at that time I had like really blonde, long hair. So like, you'd know like which one's my hair and which one was not my hair.
Yeah.
So those were the messages, and then there was stuff like with them in bathrobes in like the hotel and things like that. Yeah, and it was kind of crazy that I like fell for him. I don't know why. But I don't know. It was
Tall,
the charm,
tall,
the fucking
charming,
charm.
well-dressed artist.
A lot of people in the industry had a crush on him. He was known for like being the fuck boy, like I don't, and like because I was able to like tie, you know, whatever, thought I could, stupid basically. I was like in college, so yeah, after that ended, like what was I saying? And that relationship was kept on the down low too, because he was previously married. Yeah,
He was divorced?
separated. So the girl had already moved to San Francisco. We're like IG friends now too, by the way, that girl and I.
Oh.
Yes.
And not you and the guy?
No, not me and the
love
guy. Yes. So like his ex-wife.
Girls unite.
Girls unite. Yes. So me and his ex-wife are actually friends on Instagram, and like when I go back to San Francisco, we might actually see each other in person, which is so funny. We've been planning to meet up. It just hasn't happened.
Now there's another story here.
Yeah.
How did you meet his ex-wife?
Okay, so like basically he would talk shit about her and like why the
Classic.
relationship ended.
I've talked to married guys.
And
That
so
always happens.
I found like letters. Oh my god, I shouldn't really say more about it because that's their lives. But basically, I reached out to her that it's like at the end of the relationship, when I found out like he cheated on me and everything, I messaged her. I was like, I understand why you left. I'm so happy you left.
Yeah, I'm gonna write this down.
No, and I'm like, I'm so happy for you. I understand why you left the situation. I understand now that it isn't on you and you were painted out to be the bad person. I really wish you the best of luck. Like, I meant no harm, blah, blah, blah. And then now we're like freaking friends.
That's insane. But good
Yeah.
for you. What a mature thing to do, Adrian.
Yeah, it was one
Pat
of
on
those
the
things.
back.
And it was so funny. So last thing about this guy, because we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But so this guy at one point borrowed my iPad, so like his stuff was also like his FaceTime like was logged into it. This fucking makeup artist bitch calls the iPad.
Your language, woman.
And this was after. This was like when things were like we were like done, right? So like I pick up and I'm like, oh my god, it's the bitch. I pick it up
Wait,
and
the
I'm
makeup
like,
artist?
the makeup artist that he was cheating on me with. She calls my iPad that he borrowed because he was still logged into it.
Oh my god.
I pick it up and I'm like, hi, makeup artist. I say her name and everything. And then she was like, oh fuck. Like, she didn't know how to react. And I was like, oh, so like, I know what's been going on between you and MVP. And then she was like, oh yeah, well like that would have never really worked out because you're still so immature, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
what?
and I told her off. I was like, first of all, like woman to woman, you knew that he and I were going out and we've been exclusive for a while. Like you're the immature one and you don't know me that well to be saying things like that about me.
Yeah. What the heck?
And based on the previous story from Mick, you can see already like how much shit I've been through. So it's like, fuck you, I don't need this. So after MVP, the next relationship I had was like good. That was a nice guy trap.
Oh,
And I was
Joey.
like, no, I'm the guy that I was dating in the Philippines before I moved here.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was another like a year and a half almost relationship. But that was more like a nice guy traveling. We traveled together and things like that. But at the end of the day, like we didn't really have anything in common, and all that I had to say to him to defend him to keep the relationship was
He's a nice guy. Oh my god.
So yeah, we both have nice guy stories, and I think we'll end it there. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Now we get to know each other more. Like, I'm talking about Adrian and Bianca, but also
The audience
and us. Like, you know more than a lot of my friends. So thank you for listening.
Yes, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Whatever this is. Break up with a girlfriend, yeah, 'cause I'm bored.